The state wants you to believe that failure to act is negligence. And it may be negligence, but they want you to take one step further and say failure to act is criminal negligence. I'm just not going there. Everybody gets on this bandwagon, when you see these kinds of things and it becomes a knee-jerk reaction. I'm just not there with this. I think criminalizing and finding parents criminally liable when you have a situation like this, I think is wrong. Failure to act is not manslaughter. And that's what they're trying to conflate that here. Now, keep in mind, this is what it says. The thoughts won't stop. Help me. Blood everywhere. My life is useless and the world is dead. So, disturbing, yes.
In fact, there are numerous photographs sent to Mr. Malash.
Okay.
Yes.
How is this relevant to any of this? What I don't like about this is that it becomes being a bad parent equals criminal negligence. And it doesn't. But for it to rise to a criminal negligence standard, you have to appreciate what's going on. You have to know about it, you have to appreciate it, and you have to not give a shit and say fuck it and do something and cause the death. I think they have a real problem with the cause of death. I'm surprised this didn't get dismissed.
School so badly. Soon, I'm going to buy a 9mm pistol.
See, this is only relevant in her case if she knew about it, to prove knowledge. It's a statement not of a party opponent who's not testifying in the trial. How does this come in?
What's adult friend finder?
How the is this even part of this case? She didn't kill anybody. Keep that in mind. Her son did.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers. You are personal. How great is it to just have a personal board-certified criminal defense lawyer here at your service with a content genius and my pearl-handled pistol cufflinks just ready to fire away at whatever legal issues tackle the day or whatever. Anyway, how's that for me being inartful? So today we're going to react to the Crumbley situation. This is that Michigan couple. Mom and dad get charged after son goes to school and shoots it up. So we're going to talk about a bunch of legal issues that are surrounding this case and watch some of her testimony. But before we get to that, guess what? I'm going to come along with me. Who's this brought to you by? eForms.com. eForms.com is a very effective way to avoid the high cost of a lawyer like me when you want to be protected by a document in any kind of business transaction. For example, if you need a power of attorney, if you need bill of sale, like when my grandma sold her go-kart last week, she had to make sure that she was protected in case the guy's check bounced, because you got to sue him later, right? And if you have an agreement, you're protected. So eForms.com is a very effective way to avoid high-priced lawyers. And I really wish my grandma wouldn't have sold her go-kart, because you should see her tooling around in the backyard. Nothing gave me more pleasure than to watch her. But she was going to get something else. I don't know what her next adventure is going to be. But because of eForms.com, she's protected in that transaction. Business agreements, power of attorney, anything you need, rental agreement, bill of sale, anything you need a document for, eForms.com. This case involves the concept of manslaughter. Let's just talk about what manslaughter is. Ms. Crumbley's exposure here is up to $7,500 fine, up to 15 years imprisonment. Involuntary manslaughter involves a concept called culpable negligence or criminal negligence. It's not ordinary negligence. It's where your conduct is so bad and you act in the face of it, having this appreciation for what you're doing. In other words, I'm driving down the sidewalk and, I'm not meaning to kill anybody, but you better get out of my fucking way because I really don't give a shit. And I know I probably kill somebody. That is, that's an extreme example. But one of the things that the state has to prove is the victim died because of your actions, that your actions you took were egregiously negligent, or you intended to cause the victim harm but not necessarily kill them, and you did not have a legal justification for taking the victim's life. She didn't kill anybody. Keep that in mind. Her son did. I think the state is going to have a real tough time with this case. But we'll get more into the, and let me give you one more definition. Created a situation where the risk of great bodily harm or death was very high, knowing that as a result of the defendant's actions, he or she knew that serious harm or death would likely result. So you've got mom and dad, right? They're having separate trials. Why are they having separate trials? Why? I mean, it's the same facts, right? Why not have them together? Because they have what they call antagonistic defenses. Mom's going like this. And if mom's going like this, that's a reason to separate them or, to have separate trials. Otherwise, the state would love to join him because the state would rather have one trial rather than two. But mom's pointing the finger at dad. I don't know if dad's pointing the finger at mom or not yet. His trial's like next week or right after this one is done. So you've got mom being tried separately. What are some facts that are salient with regard to mom? Mom didn't buy him the gun. And this is just a little bit of me, I suppose, advocating a little bit because I don't like this case from a prosecution standpoint. I don't think, we should be prosecuting parents for the actions of their children. I just don't think so. Now, it all is going to hinge on what mom knew and when she knew it. We have a kid who was writing all kinds of shit in his journal, writing, pictures of guns, telling people, I want to kill, they're telling me to kill, I need help. And, I don't know how much of that mom knew. Mom didn't buy him the gun. Dad bought him the gun. However, mom did take him to the range. So my understanding is that the school kind of knew about some of this stuff, but didn't tell mom. I can speak personally on that issue because when Michael was in high school, if he ever had any issues, I never fucking heard about it from the school. They didn't communicate shit to me. Before we get into her testimony, let's talk a little bit about what's in his journal.
Yes.
Can you read what's been identified here as page 6?
So, EC, that's the child journal, page 6. I have zero help for my mental problems, and it's causing me to shoot up the school. Shoot up the fucking school is what it looks like it says.
That journal?
Yes, the shooter writes, I have zero help, as you can see on bold, for my mental problems, and it's causing me to shoot up the f***ing school.
I'm going to move on to page 5. Could you read this passage, please?
In this one, the shooter writes, I want help, but my parents don't listen to me, and I can't get any help.
So, parents are not medical or mental health professionals. Let's just start there. I struggle with this because all growing up with, raising Michael, I never had him. I would never let him play first-person shooter games. I just didn't want him to do that. I didn't buy guns for him. I wouldn't have done any of this stuff. But there's plenty of people in Michigan that do. And Michigan is a very much a gun state. There's a lot of hunters, a lot of outdoorsmen. And so if I'm trying this case, I want people who have guns, who are not sensitive to the gun culture.
Now, this is page 19. Can you read that?
Yes. Shooter writes, my parents won't listen to me about help or therapist.
I have a little bit of an issue with these statements coming in because my understanding is that the mom didn't necessarily know about these statements. Apparently, he's been sentenced to life in prison, but I have a problem with this journal coming into evidence because if it's on appeal, he can't testify. He still has a Fifth Amendment right. And the journal itself is hearsay. So, but I'm sure they litigated that beforehand.
Sir, in that journal, were there entries about the shooter's desire to obtain a 9mm handgun?
Yes.
This is also Exhibit 401, page 22. Could you read those quotes, please?
Yes. The shooter writes, I want to shoot up the school so badly. Soon, I'm going to buy a 9mm pistol.
See, this is only relevant in her case if she knew about it, to prove knowledge of what he was going to do. But again, it's a statement. It's a statement not of a party opponent. It's a statement of a third party, who's not testifying in the trial. How does this come in?
Sir, were there any passages regarding
I mean, the problem is it's uncross-examinable. How do you cross-examine on this?
the shooter's plan for the actual shooting?
Yes, there were.
Okay.
And how is that cop able to say what he was doing? There should be an objection right there. He was planning for the shooting. Is this a objection? Speculation. The document speaks for itself.
Here's page 3, also Exhibit 401. Could you read that, please?
Yes. Shooter writes, I'm about to shoot up the school and spend the rest of my life in prison.
Were there any journal entries about the shooter's access to the 9mm handgun?
There were.
How does this? I still don't know how this journal comes in.
This is also Exhibit 401, also page 3. Could you read that, please?
Yes, sir. The shooter writes, first off, I got my gun. It's a SP 2022 Sig Sauer 9mm. Second, the shooting is tomorrow. I have access to the gun and the ammo. I am fully committed to this now. So yeah, I'm going to prison for life, and many people have about 1 day left to live.
Do you have any?
How awful? How awful is that? And if the parents knew about that and didn't act, that's a huge problem for the defense in this case. But we don't know that that's the case.
Live.
Do you have any evidence to believe that Mr. Crumbley or Mrs. Crumbley saw the journal?
No, if I had evidence of that, I imagine the charges would be different.
Okay, objection. You shouldn't be able to say that. But I mean, how is that coming in if they didn't have any knowledge of it? This may be an evidentiary error by the judge. And so if she is convicted, that would be huge.
If you had evidence they saw the journal, the charges would be different?
Yeah, murder,
Okay.
I would imagine.
Okay, so
Why would the fuck would you ask that? Or why would you let him expand on that? You don't let him expand on that at all.
the journal was located in the backpack that belonged to the shooter,
Yes,
correct?
correct.
There were also a number of other papers in that backpack that you described.
Yes.
You don't have any evidence that Mrs. Crumbley ever saw any of those papers, correct?
Correct.
That is huge. That is huge. And that's my whole point. That journal should never have come into evidence. It's way more prejudicial than probative. It's uncross-examinable. There's no way that you can really defend against it except to say that she didn't know about it. And the damage is already done because how shocking are those words? They're absolutely shocking. There was a time where the child got caught looking up ammunition at school. And, he texts his mother and she says, LOL, I'm not mad at you. You just have to learn not to get caught. And there's no context that it had anything to do with shooting up the school. The dad got him a gun. And there's a lot of parents that buy their children guns. Rifles for hunting, other firearms for sports shooting. There's all kinds of things like that. So the fact that she's talking about ammo and at school, it's concerning, but it's not quite there yet, I don't think. The defense leads off with their star witness, the defendant, Mrs. Crumbley. Now, people talk a lot about whether your client testifies or not, but when you have the state of mind of the defendant as really the ultimate fact in the case, who's better than the defendant to testify about that fact? And if you properly prepare your client, I think she has to testify in this kind of case. Wherever you have like a he said, she said, if the jury only hears one side of the story, guess what's going to fucking happen? Unless you can knock that person out of the water, with their credibility, they're going to go with the one side, right? So you have to balance it out. More often than not I have my clients testify, and I know that's a little bit unconventional, but I win a lot of cases on that basis.
It's Jennifer Crumbley.
And Mrs. Crumbley, you and I have been working together since December of 2021, correct?
Correct.
And is it fair to say over these last 26 months, we've discussed whether or not you intended to testify a number of times?
We have.
Keep in mind, she's been in custody for the last 26 months. 2 years. Little over 2 years that she's been in custody. She hasn't been convicted of a thing. And her son got life without.
Do you want to testify in your case?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you did not testify, this judge, this court, would give the jury instructions that it cannot be held against you?
Yes.
Do you understand that after
So prior to a defendant testifying, this is what they're doing here, just so you know. There has to be a soliloquy, a conversation about the defendant's right not to testify. And if you chose not to testify, you know that the judge and the prosecution can't use your silence against you. And in fact, neither can the jury. And the judge will read an instruction to the jury that they're not allowed to infer anything from your silence.
Do you understand that after I question you, the prosecution is going to be able to cross-examine you?
Yes.
And do you understand they're going to be able to cross-examine you about all of the evidence that's been admitted in the case, including all of your text messages or your Facebook messages to your husband, all of those messages with Mr. Maloche, all the evidence in the case,
Yes,
correct?
I do.
They get full reign on cross-examination. We've gone over that, is that correct?
Correct.
And do you have any questions for myself or for Judge Matthew? How often would you and James talk to Ethan?
We'll talk to him every day. Talk about him probably every day too.
Okay. Did Ethan have scheduling things you had to work out?
Yeah, he had bowling practices throughout the week, bowling matches, and he worked part-time at a diner. So we had to work out transportation and scheduling with that.
But it's unclear as to exactly how much his mother knew, and this is what this is all about. Having an affirmative duty to do something is different from doing something in face of danger. Keep that in mind.
In terms of your relationship with your son, how did you think your relationship was?
I thought we were pretty close. We would talk. We did a lot of things together. I trusted him, and I felt like I had an open door and he can come to me about anything. I felt as a family the three of us were really close.
How wrong could she be? If you read the messages, I'm going to shoot the fucking school up. I'm not getting help from anybody. There's a disconnect here, right? And I can tell you this: I never go through my daughter's backpack, ever. I have no clue what's in there. I never went through Michael's backpack, thank God. Who knows what I would have found in there? But I'm kidding, of course. But you generally don't. You trust your kids. You're getting good grades. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And everybody goes about their business. People forget. What did she just say? He's got bowling practice and he worked. So it sounds like a busy, and he's got school. So you take those three things, that takes up a lot of his time. And she probably has work, he's got work. So you go along the days and you think things are one way, but you have no clue that they're the other way.
Okay, you're getting a lot of, no, it's okay. You're getting a lot of redness here. Is that normal?
Yes, because I'm talking in front of people and my nerves act up. So I get splotchy and I might break out in hives and I apologize.
Okay, but you are okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
That's an autonomic response, to stress.
So with regard to your son, did you ever go through his text messages, go through his bedroom? What kind of a parent were you in terms of going through those things?
I did not go through his text messages. I didn't have a reason to. His bedroom, I would go through when I clean it. And I come across things, I look through it to see if it was something I needed to keep or throw away. But I never went through his text messages.
This is a text where the prosecution admitted to show that your son texted you, okay, the house is now haunted. What time was that text at?
It says 6:03 p.m.
Okay.
I don't know if it says -4. I don't know what that means.
Okay, and then the next text, some weird just happens and now I'm scared. Next one, I got some videos and a picture of the demon is throwing bowls. I'm not joking, it's the kitchen. I'm just going to be an outsider for a while.
I mean, I'm sure I saw them, but they just didn't stick out to me until this case.
Why didn't they stick out to you?
Because it wasn't anything that was anything serious. It was Ethan just messing around.
You got to explain to
So, when a parent sees something, there's nothing in those messages to say, hey, I'm going to shoot the fucking school up. She's not trained to see mental illness. And this stuff can come on gradually. And so, to really have it be, I mean, should she have taken notice and gotten him therapy? In hindsight, yes. But for it to rise to a criminal negligence standard, you have to appreciate what's going on. You have to know about it, you have to appreciate it, and you have to not give a shit and say fuck it and do something and cause the death. I think they have a real problem with the cause of death. I'm surprised this didn't get dismissed.
explain to the jury, how did Ethan mess around?
So he's been convinced our house has been haunted since 2015. It was built in 1920. Around that time frame, him and his friend would go down to the basement and play a Ouija board. So they thought we
Normal behavior. And people talk about ghosts all the time. I talk about, there are shows that talk about ghosts all the time.
had a house ghost. So it was around that time when he would mess with us that things were going on in the house. Silverware was flying across the room. Doors were slamming. He actually took a video of the door and showed me when I got home. And you can clearly see where he's standing back with his phone, looking at the door that's open. You can see him walk up the door, and you can kind of see him slam it, of him trying to say, "See, our house is haunted." So it was that kind of stuff that he did.
When you put your client on the stand, after a lot of the evidence has gone in, you have to blunt some of the things that the state has tried to make you speculate about. They had a cop testify about the journal and about the text messages, and then and I think improperly make some conclusions from that, some speculative conclusions. But that's what the mother was doing, is putting those things into context.
Yeah, I texted my husband and asked where you're at, and I believe he called me and told me that him and Ethan were at the Acme firearm store looking at guns.
Okay.
And then they came home from there.
So what do you do with that as a mom? Can you put your foot down? And what if you have a domineering husband who says, "Oh, you're full of shit. Boy's got to learn how to shoot. He's got to learn how to protect himself. That's what we're doing here." And they act without regard to the mother. What about that? What we're talking about here is that's not criminal negligence.
Okay, did they purchase a gun that day?
They did.
Okay, the prosecution brought in exhibits showing the receipts, all of that. You weren't with them when they bought the gun, correct?
No, I was not.
Okay. You did.
Yeah, I texted my husband and asked where you're at, and I believe he called me and told me that him and Ethan were at the Acme firearm store looking at guns.
Okay.
And then they came home from there.
Okay, did they purchase a gun that day?
They did.
Okay, the prosecution brought in exhibits showing the receipts, all of that. You weren't with them when they bought the gun, correct?
No, I was not.
Okay. You did post on Facebook a photo of the gun. We saw the post, correct?
Correct.
And in the post that's been admitted already, you described it as your son's Christmas gift. Can you explain who wanted the gun? What does it mean?
They had rented a knife.
The child is 15 when dad decides to go buy him a gun. A semi-automatic, Sig Sauer 9mm handgun. too easy to put in a backpack, too easy to conceal, in my opinion. But mom wasn't there, and you're holding mom responsible for something dad did here at this point.
Rented a 9mm at the shooting range before, so they knew it was the type of gun, or the size gun, I guess what it is, that they wanted to get. And my son and my husband did a lot of texting back and forth. My son did a lot of research on it, and they're comparing different ones that they wanted to buy. That went on for a couple months. My husband just kind of kept blowing it off, like, not right now, not right now. And then I guess when I was out shopping, they said, well, let's go try on Black Friday, see if we can get one on sale, or if there's any deals going on.
Okay, so they ultimately did get one.
Right.
Now, did you object? Did you say, I don't want that gun in the house? Anything like that?
No, I was more angry that they cut into our Christmas tree time. Usually cut my Christmas tree down right after I get back from shopping, but I had to wait for them. So I was irritated at that.
You can see that the gun and the activities surrounding the gun is primarily a father-son deal.
Did he have free access to that gun?
No, it was for him to use at the shooting range only.
Was he allowed to take it out?
Not without my husband around.
Did he know where it was kept?
My husband hid it usually in our bedroom in different spots.
Okay. What was the intention of hiding it?
That's just what you're supposed to do.
Okay. And when it was hidden, was it locked in any way?
It had the cable lock on it.
Okay. And you
So I my firearms that I keep at home, I have a trigger lock on it, so it's inoperable. So even though you could have access to it because it's not, whatever, you have to know the combination, and so it sounds like that's what we're talking about here.
again testified about the key being in a beer stein.
Correct.
Would the beer stein be right by the cable lock? Or?
No.
Okay, so where would the beer stein be?
It would probably be in one of the ones in the kitchen.
Is that ideal to have the firearm just put in a stein or a cookie jar or putting it in different places here and there? Probably not. A gun safe is probably the best thing. You lock it up and you hang onto the key and make sure your kid doesn't have any access to it. But but the really issue is not even the gun itself. It's this malice. It's this this sick desire to shoot up the school. What did she know about it? When did she find out?
Okay, Exhibit 166. This is from September 8th, 2021. It starts off with an email from Miss McConnell to Sean Hopkins. It says, can you please touch base with Ethan Crumbley? In his autobiography poem, he said he feels terrible and that his family is a mistake. Unusual responses for sure. He writes back, thanks for the heads up. I'm in senior meetings throughout the day. I'll try to catch up with him. Were you aware this was ever a discussion or an issue?
No.
That is not uncommon. I have been privy to that same exact experience where the school doesn't reach out to you about Jack, even though all kinds of shit are going on.
Were you aware that Mr. Hopkins ever talked to or tried to talk to your son?
No.
Did anyone ever call you to make you aware of any of this?
No.
If you heard this, how would you react, or what would your reaction be?
I'd be definitely concerned why he feels like his family's a mistake and he feels terrible. So that would be a concern to me.
Okay. So this is something you were unaware of.
Correct.
And in fact, when did you find out these emails existed?
When we started getting discovered.
Okay, so
I mean, think about that. Something's going on at this, and this is just common. We don't, as parents, we don't know everything that's going on with our children, especially like on social media, especially at school. And it's incumbent upon us, honestly, to pry a little bit, and you know how difficult it is to get in your child's phone. I mean, and I don't know what the right answer there is. There's a balance. You've seen an angry teenager. You've seen slamming doors. You want peace in your home. And granted, fuck the kid in terms of their privacy, because their safety is, and safety of others, that comes first. But if they're not really giving you those signs and you're not privy to a lot of this stuff, how can you be held criminally negligent for this.
So, in this case.
Correct.
Do these texts look familiar to you?
They do.
Okay, who are these between?
These are between me and his friend's mom.
Okay, and you start off with my son is in bowling tonight, I just want to let you know, not sure if he needs a partner. Why are you texting that?
I don't know why he wasn't bowling tonight, off the top of my head, but they have partners on certain nights of the week, and so him and his friend were always partners, so I was letting her know that he wasn't going to be there.
Okay, and this is on one date, April 29th. Did you talk to her on other dates, or is this like the only time you talked to her?
We've talked back and forth quite a bit.
Okay. Now, on this date, you say he's been acting kind of depressed. I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure if there's something bothering him at school, but he doesn't really feel good. I can't get anything out of him.
I can't get anything out of him. That shows an affirmative action on the mother's part to investigate why he's down. Now, it's a fucking stretch to think, okay, my son's down, he's going to shoot up a school. I mean, who thinks that? I mean, maybe we should be thinking like that in this day and age, I suppose, because there's so damn many school shootings. But you can see that the mom is trying, but not being communicated with her son. And this is a very candid and what seems to be real text message, and gives you kind of more of a in-time, authentic message of where the mother's head was at in a particular point in time.
Friend's mom mentions he stayed home from school today too. The only time they're happy is when they're together. Talking about grades, you had mentioned, this is all new to me. I'm not used to my son being moody. He's usually pretty happy.
You hear that? This is all new to me. You know, what the statute requires is criminal negligence. Having the knowledge of the dangerous condition and setting it up and then disregarding it.
I do know he's been stressed about school and his grades. We called the school, but she wasn't in social do it tomorrow. I think his grades have a lot to do with it. I just got to a point where he's got so far behind and we were out of town. He's having difficulties making it up. Where were you guys out of town?
In Florida, my mother-in-law had passed away, so we were gone for a couple of weeks in the middle of April, taking care of funeral arrangements and everything.
And at this time, when you describe your son as being moody or depressed, did you think it was anything that warranted getting medical attention?
No, he was just being quieter. He's a quiet kid. He was just being quieter than normal. And I'd ask him if everything okay. He'd say fine, but I could just tell he was a little sad. And I thought maybe I didn't see his friend in a couple of weeks. So I don't know if maybe they got into a fight and they weren't talking.
She comes off credible, I think. And just put yourself in that position if you're a parent. You know, our kids get moody sometimes, and who knows what's behind it. And my daughter, I mean, shit, I can, if she's down, what's wrong? Nothing. Come on, tell me what's wrong. Nothing. Let me see no. You know, sometimes it's hard to break through that wall.
Mr. Hopkins testified that he sent you something. What did he send you?
He sent me a copy of a math worksheet that had the scribbled out drawings on it.
Okay, and I want to ask you, the night before that scribbles out drawing thing came to you, did you have any interactions with your son?
Yes, we did.
What were those about?
I saw in Power School that he had an E in geometry, so we got in an argument again about his grades. We took his phone away and told him that he couldn't go to the shooting range until his grades were brought back up.
Okay, so
this is leading up to the day of the shooting, and so his grades are slipping. He's slipping, but it doesn't appear that she knows why. And she's trying to inquire why. And then, so what does she do? They take the gun away, they take the phone away, and take his privileges away, which is normal, right?
Argument the night before, we saw lots of messages where you thought everything was fine that Tuesday morning. Is that how you felt?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you got that math paper texted to you, do you recall saying anything to Ethan on the phone, on speaker?
Yeah, I asked him why he did that.
Okay, what were you thinking at that point?
I was actually kind of angry because I thought he did that in like defiance of us yelling him about missing assignments, and here he is drawing.
So this is why would he draw the picture of the gun on the notes, on the math notes?
Because I thought he did that in like defiance of us yelling him about missing assignments, and here he is drawing pictures on an empty assignment page in geometry.
So you felt like it was specifically him sending you a message about the night before.
Yeah.
How did that meeting go?
It was pretty nonchalant. It was pretty brief. He started to tell. He basically filled me in on what my son and him were talking about for the last hour and a half. He said that my son told him that he was feeling sad over the death of a dog that we had. My mother-in-law, the loss of his friend. So we talked a little bit about that. We confirmed it. We decided we agreed it was hard on him. He told us that he didn't feel my son was a risk, and actually gave him the option if he wanted to.
He didn't feel my son was a risk. So she's talking to the school now, on that particular note. And she doesn't have knowledge of the other things that he has written in his journal. So this is like the day before the shooting, and she's got in her head that he's not at risk, and that's directly from the school.
If he wanted to stay at school or go home, my son wanted to stay at school, so we all discussed that.
Did you feel like you were taking the position of, I am leaving him at school whether he can be here or not?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Were you surprised or were you not surprised? Did you have any feelings about whether or not he could stay at school?
I didn't really. I thought the advice that they were giving us was a good advice. We talked about him being sad, and then he said being around peers usually helps. So we all agreed to that. My son gets very stressed out when he does work.
I think this is extremely credible. Now, the defense should back this up with other teachers and people that had talked to her, so that it's not just her talking about this.
Very stressed out when he does virtual school, so we agreed that it might stress him out more to do his school remotely the rest of the day. But there was never a time where I would refuse to take him home. I could easily, if he wanted to go, take him with me. I had no issues with that.
To us. Why did you send him back?
After I left the meeting, I knew that he was sad about things, and I just wanted to let him know that he can talk to us about anything. Just wanted to make sure I opened that door.
That's different from the messages that he had been writing in his journal. So, I mean, he's writing in his journal that no one wants to talk to me, no one will help me, I need a therapist, my parents don't care. And we may feel like that sometimes, I mean, how many times have you felt a particular way but didn't tell a soul? And how is anybody supposed to know? So mom's reaching out. I mean, if what she says is true, it doesn't sound like criminal negligence to me.
Just let him know that we're there for him and we love him.
Okay, and he said he loved you. Do you recall that?
I do.
Okay, was there anything unusual about that?
Yeah, he's at that age where it was hard to get I love yous back out of him. For me to open my text and just see him randomly saying I love you was abnormal for him.
Right.
My daughter, if I want a hug, she gives me a hand hug like this. Wrong hand, but, just like this. That's what she does, and then teenagers are teenagers, right? And you really, the idea of shooting up a school is so out there, even though we've had so many of these things happen over the years. You're never going to think it's your kid. You're never, ever going to think it's, my kid would never do that, and I'm sure she felt the same way.
Think anything at that point?
No, not right at that point. I think I said text back I love you too. I don't remember. I believe I did. Yeah.
Okay. And later in the thread, you say, don't do it. So when you hear there's an open shooter at the school, I want to know in your mind, what do you believe is happening?
Well, my husband had called me when I was still at work, and he said there's an active shooter at Oxford High School, and I can't get a hold of Ethan. And that's when I opened my phone and I saw the "I love you" text. And then I texted him, "Are you okay?" In the process of it, I was getting my stuff and running out the door, letting my boss know that I had to go to my son's school. It was on 75 when I was trying to get to the exit that my husband called me and he asked me where I hid the bullets, and I told him, and then he said the gun is missing. So instantly, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's got the gun. I didn't actually think he was at the school shooting it. I thought maybe he walked home.
So you get this, her hiding the bullets, what does that do for you? That's another frame of mind. Keep in mind, he was on restriction. So mom hides the bullets and probably hid the gun, and he found both. I mean, kids can find whatever they want. I mean, it doesn't take long for a kid to search your room to find out whatever they're looking for. But think of the torment going through her mind. There's a shooting going on at the school. Your first impulse is to go protect your son, your child. But then to figure out that your child is the one responsible for it? Holy fuck. Tell me that wouldn't just blow your mind. I'm not hearing out of this, and then granted, this is direct examination. This is the light most favorable to the defense questioning, but I'm not hearing. I'm not hearing the criminal negligence out of here.
And got the gun and was in the field by the school. I didn't imagine my son actually going into a school and shooting. And then when we got more updates, I was like, oh my gosh, he's a school shooter. He's going to kill himself. Because in my mind, that's what school shooters have done. They've killed themselves after. So I yelled in my talk to text, Ethan, don't do it, because I thought he was going to kill himself.
In some of the messages the prosecution admitted, you say that you failed as a parent. Are you a failure as a parent?
I don't think I'm a failure as a parent, but at that time, I guess I felt bad that Ethan was sad at those things, and I guess I don't know, I just felt like I failed somewhere.
This case is not about being a failure as a parent. This case is about creating a dangerous situation and not giving a shit about it. Having a reckless disregard for the safety of others. She had no information that her child would go and shoot up the school. Let's just start from the causation. Well, I suppose she gave birth to him. She brought him into this world. He did that. Therefore, but for her, this wouldn't have happened. Well, you can't. Okay, that's ridiculous, obviously, right? And then if we go a little bit further, okay, well, they bought the gun. Now we're getting a little bit closer, but they were taking steps to prevent him from having the gun. And that alone should be enough to acquit, because it's the state of mind that we're talking about here. It's involuntary manslaughter. So what we're talking about here is the criminal negligence which occurs when a person is accidentally killed due to someone else's criminal negligence, or when someone is killed doing something where the intent is not to kill, but it's such a high likelihood of death. I don't get the appreciation here. What I mean by that is, I don't get the sense that she appreciated the danger and acted without regard to it.
Somewhere, I don't really know how to describe it. It's just that point in time, I just kind of felt like somewhere I failed.
Do you believe there was anything? Do you believe that you knew or had reason to know your son was a danger to anyone else?
No. As a parent, you spend your whole life trying to protect your child from other dangers. You never would think you have to protect your child from harming somebody else. That's what blew my mind. That was the hardest thing I had to stomach, is that my child harmed and killed other people.
Do you believe there were things you were thinking at the time, I should do this, but I'm not doing it? Do you look back and think that?
No, I don't. I mean, of course I look back after this all happened, and I've asked myself if I would have done anything differently, and I wouldn't have.
If you could change what happened, would you?
Oh, absolutely. I wish he would have killed us instead.
How awful. And I get sincerity from her. I get authenticity from her. Well, what I don't get is criminal negligence from her. And then, granted, we're not into cross-examination yet, but that's what I get from her. All right, so that's basically her testimony in a nutshell. I think the judge created an error here where the judge allowed the journal to come into evidence. Number one, it's hearsay. Number two, I suppose they can say it's not offered for its truth, but it absolutely is offered for its truth. So here's what hearsay is. Hearsay is a statement other than the declarant offered for the truth of the matter asserted. And you saw the cop get up there, and the cop is just reciting what's in the fucking journal, right? And so they're offering it for its truth, but it's uncross-examinable because number one, she didn't see it, and number two, you can't impute that knowledge onto her. So the danger of unfair prejudice is real. And now the case is over in the sense that the state has rested, the defense has rested. So now it goes to the jury. The judge will instruct the jury, and the jury will render a verdict, probably Monday, I bet. She didn't cause anybody's death. Her son did. If you say that she caused the death by doing what? Tell me what she did to cause anybody's death. You can't answer that question because she did nothing to cause anybody's death. Did she ignore the warning signs of her son? We cannot go down that road. This is kind of going to be a very pivotal case in American jurisprudence because what happens in Michigan isn't going to affect what happens in California necessarily, but it could provide a roadmap, in future cases. And I think it's a dangerous precedent, and it puts parents in a different dangerous position of, God, how do I parent my child now? If I'm liable for the things my kid does, am I liable for him if he goes out and drinks and drives and kills somebody? Think about that. 16-year-old goes and parties. You don't have any knowledge of it, but you gave him the keys to the car, and he goes and drink. You're going to be liable civilly because you own the car, but criminally. So there's a big difference between, you should have seen some warning signs to criminal negligence. Big, big, big difference. So now that we've seen the direct, and we're not going to go into it in depth, but let's just get a flavor of the cross-examination of the defense. Let's see. We're not going to go into this, a ton because, but we've seen the direct, a flavor of the direct. Let's get a flavor of the cross-examination by the state.
Mrs. Crumbley, I'd like to talk to you about your vigilance as a parent. But before I do, I want to make sure that you understood the oath that you just took.
I do.
Okay, you understand that you took the stand under oath and you have to tell the truth?
I do.
You understand that was the rules yesterday as well?
Correct.
All right, we're going to come back to that. Now, you have been described by your attorney as a hyper-vigilant parent.
Correct.
Okay, do you agree with that?
I do.
In fact, you called yourself a helicopter parent before.
Yes, I was.
So you told us that you spent a lot of family time together.
We did.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about what your digital footprint shows.
Okay.
What the evidence on your phone shows.
Okay.
Now, it's true, you agree with me, that having horses is quite a time-consuming hobby.
It can be.
Okay? It was for you.
It can be.
And that's what you said yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. And you were at the barn for between 3 and 5 times a week?
More like 3 times a week.
3 times a week
Yeah.
for a couple hours a trip?
Correct.
Okay. It's also an expensive hobby.
It is.
So your banking records show that in the year of 2021, you spent over $20,000 on the horses. Is that correct?
Probably.
Okay. And that's not including cash. That's just from Capital One and Flagstar Bank.
Correct.
In fact, you told a coworker that half of your salary basically goes to the horses.
I might have, yes.
What I don't like about this is that it becomes being a bad parent equals criminal negligence. And it doesn't. A lot of this could have been blunted, by the defense in pretrial motions. Because, I mean, who gives a shit what she spends her fucking money on? That's a far afield from criminal negligence.
Now, except on rare occasion, you didn't bring your son with you to the barn.
He was not into horses. I would ask every time I went to the barn, but he didn't want to go.
So the answer was no?
No.
Okay. And at least as far as your horses being boarded with Kira Pennock from June of 2021 to November of 2021, your son never went with you. Is that correct?
I think he went once when my in-laws were in town and we met them at the barn.
Okay. But there was nothing stopping you from taking him?
No, he just didn't want to go.
Okay. It's a family.
If my daughter doesn't want to do something, you think it's easy for me to get her to do something? Teenagers. He's 15 years old.
Okay. It's a family atmosphere.
It can be.
Okay. Like the Halloween party that she had. That was for families.
Yeah, most of the kids there are young.
Okay. In the winters, you were on ski patrol as well.
Correct.
Okay. And that can be a bit of a time-consuming hobby.
It can be.
All right. And you would be on ski patrol between 1 and 2 times a week?
It's a total of 10 hours a week.
10 hours a week. Okay. So how many days?
I did doubles on Saturdays, so 1 day a week for me.
Okay.
So you get the flavor, it's all about parenting.
You told this jury yesterday you depicted your affair with Mr. Malash as a one time a week meet up at a Costco parking lot. Is that your testimony?
Correct.
Okay. But it wasn't just that, was it?
Nope.
Okay. In fact, there are numerous photographs sent to Mr. Malash.
Okay.
Yes.
How is this relevant to any of this? It's not relevant to the issue of whether she was criminally negligent. This is just bad character evidence.
Yes or no?
I'm sure there was.
Okay. Numerous messages exchanged
There should be objection after objection after objection here.
with him.
Correct.
And it wasn't just during the week, Monday through Friday, was it?
No.
No. In fact, that's what you said yesterday. But in fact, it included trips,
There were actual business trips that he met me on.
okay, and it included other individuals.
Yes.
What's adult friend finder?
So we can go on and
How the fuck is this even part of this case? I understand he's trying to paint her as this person who has got all these other interests, and that her son is just over here. I'm into horses, I'm into skiing, I'm into fucking around, but there's my son over there. I'm not sure that I would have let this in if I was the judge, because it's so far afield. And it's more prejudicial than probative, it seems to me.
meet people who meet certain tastes that you're looking for.
This is 429. And you had the app Adult Friend Finder on your phone.
I do not believe I had the app on my
Okay, it
phone.
was found on your phone.
Okay, well, I guess it was on my phone.
Okay, and there were messages from you to other individuals.
Correct.
Your Honor, I would object that this is going outside
Gee, now you object. It is just so far afield.
the scope of the affair with Brian, but
I don't think the court's ruling on opening the door was confined to just her extramarital affair with Brian Marsh.
Well, I guess with regard to Mr. Malash, I determined that the defense opened the door. I don't know, but I determined that the defense opened the door as to other
And she depicted herself as having one extramarital affair for about a 6-month period of time.
Here's the other thing. The jury's sitting right there. You don't have these speaking objections. Remember what happened with Miss Haba Haba Haba? And she got up and was speaking objection, and the court said, sit the fuck down. You don't do this.
Where she met with him one time a week. That was her testimony yesterday. We have evidence to the contrary, and I think it's important.
this is going to get exciting.
All right,
It is what it is.
all right, well, Go ahead, but
I won't delve too far
okay, yeah,
into it, Judge.
really, this,
The judge is not in control of this courtroom. You can clearly see the young public defender, I'm sure, is a little slow on the draw, and the state's attorney is a pit bull. He looks like he knows what he's doing.
Okay. This was sent to you. So Sean Hawkins called you at 9:24 in the morning, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You called him back at 9:27.
Correct.
You had a 5-minute phone call,
Correct.
and then in that phone call, he texted you the picture with it was drawn out, and he emailed you this original picture.
Yeah, he texted me the modified one, and then later emailed me this one.
Now, keep in mind, this is what it says. The thoughts won't stop. Help me. Blood everywhere. My life is useless, and the world is dead. So, disturbing, yes.
9:32.
Yeah, like after I asked him for it.
You looked at it.
I did.
Okay. You told us yesterday you found it, I think your quote was, a little concerning. What struck?
So, she's got that in her mind, and I think this shooting happens, not that long after this. She didn't create this. And what did she do in react? I mean, this is what I don't like about this. Would she have been negligent in not telling somebody? I mean, the school already knew about that. Why? Okay, let me ask you something about the school. Why did the school tell her about the other stuff that he wrote? Why did the school stop him from? Why did the school search his fucking backpack? The principal had it in his hands. Why did the school search his backpack? Failure to act is not manslaughter. And that's what they're trying to conflate that here.
What struck you about this?
Originally, when I saw the modified one, I was kind of angry at my son because we just talked about his missing assignments in geometry and his E the night before. Then when I got this one and opened it, it was concerning. I honestly thought the guy on there was a poor drawing of Batman, the way the thing and the cat. I thought it was a cape. I didn't know.
You thought that was a cape?
I did. I didn't look at that
closely.
closely.
What did you think of the gun?
I thought it was a gun.
Yeah. What about the fact that it is identical to the gun that you got him for Christmas a couple days before?
I mean, honestly, it looks like a gun to me. I didn't even notice.
Well, you took a picture of the gun. You posted it on Instagram. You know what it looks like.
I do, but I didn't analyze it.
You saw Special Agent Brandon's testimony. He described how it's identical. And you told us yesterday how your son was a good drawer.
He's a very good drawer.
Okay. What about the thoughts won't stop, help me? Did that ring out to you?
Yes, that was what was concerning to me.
What did she do to cause the death of somebody else? And how did she act in conscious disregard? Tell me what she did.
Blood everywhere, and there's a bullet. And actually, you were the one who bought the bullets on November the 27th.
Correct.
You later came to learn that those bullets were used in the shooting.
I did.
Okay. So you said yesterday it was a little concerning.
Okay, you bought the bullets. Did you buy them knowing he was going to do something negative with them? It's having an appreciation for the situation at hand. So she didn't buy the gun, but she did buy the bullets. Hindsight is always, I mean, we can end this here. I mean, but you get a flavor for the prosecution here, right? And hindsight is always 20/20. Oh, you should have done this. You should have done that. You should have done this. It's difficult when you are going through your life day to day to day to day to day. There were many days where I didn't know if my son was going to go to school. I just assumed that he would. And all of a sudden, I get halfway through the semester and I find out, oh, he hasn't been going to school. I consider myself a vigilant parent. And all of a sudden I find out, oh, he's not at school. You should have fucking called me. So my point is this. I mean, it's tragic that people lost their lives, especially this way. And it's tragic that this boy was so far gone that he felt the only thing he could do was kill people and get a life sentence. He appreciated what he was going to do and the consequences thereof. He absolutely did. Mom, at least mom here, I haven't seen dad. The state wants you to believe that failure to act is negligence. And it may be negligence. But they want you to take one step further and say failure to act is criminal negligence. I'm just not going there, and I know this is not, everybody gets on this bandwagon, when you see these kinds of things, and it becomes a, knee-jerk reaction. And I'm just not there with this. I think criminalizing and finding parents criminally liable when you have a situation like this, I think is wrong. And it'll be my prediction that she's going to get acquitted. But you never know. You have a gun culture. If you buy your child a gun, you're automatically liable for the school shooting. That's kind of what they want you to say. If you had an affair, I don't know why this fucking affair came into play. It sounds like the defense opened the door somehow, and that just is maybe another argument for another day. But how does that have anything to do with the school shooting? All it is just character assassination. So thank you for watching. Subscribe, and we'll follow the verdict. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, and sign up for Patreon. We'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, police is at my god.